Welcome to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're grateful you've chosen to join us today. Tell us, which part of the world are you watching from? Big city? Small town? Country? We'd love to know. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Foundations. Maxwell Reed had always been the outsider. Growing up in South Boston with a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table, he learned early that the world doesn't hand out favors. At 12, he coded his first program. By 16, he was fixing computers for local businesses. By 20, he had dropped out of his scholarship at MIT to pursue his vision: security software that could adapt to new threats in real time. Everyone said he was crazy. Everyone except Olivia Campbell. They met at a charity gala where Maxwell had been hired to upgrade the venue's outdated systems. Olivia, draped in a midnight blue gown that probably cost more than his annual rent, had approached him while he was troubleshooting a glitch. "You look like the only person here who's actually working," she'd said, her smile revealing perfect teeth. "I'm Olivia." "Maxwell," he'd replied, not looking up from his laptop. "And I'm a bit busy right now." Instead of walking away offended, she'd laughed. Finally, someone who doesn't fawn over the Campbell name. That had made him look up. The Campbells were Boston royalty, old money with tentacles in everything from banking to real estate. Lawrence Campbell, Olivia's father, was practically an institution. "Should I be impressed?" Maxwell had asked. "God, no," Olivia had replied, lowering her voice. "It's refreshing to meet someone who isn't." Their romance had been unexpected. Olivia, with her private school education and summers in the Hamptons, seemed worlds apart from Maxwell. But she had a rebellious streak that matched his independence. When Lawrence Campbell found out his daughter was dating that nobody from Southie, he'd been livid. When Olivia announced their engagement 8 months later, Lawrence had threatened to disown her. "You'll come crawling back when he fails," Lawrence had predicted during a tense family dinner. Men like him always do. Olivia had stormed out, Maxwell following close behind. That night, as they sat on the roof of his cramped apartment building, looking at the city lights, Olivia had made him a promise. "I choose you, Max. Not my father's money, not the Campbell name. You." They married at City Hall a week later. No Campbells attended. For 3 years, they lived in relative happiness. Maxwell's startup, Shield Core, operated out of a converted warehouse space. Olivia got a job at an art gallery, against her father's wishes. They weren't rich, but they were comfortable. More importantly, they were free. Then came the market crash. Investors pulled out. Maxwell's primary business partner, Peter Sullivan, suffered a heart attack and had to step away. Shield Core began bleeding money. Maxwell worked 18-hour days trying to save his company. Nights when he crawled in a bed at 3 a.m., Olivia was already asleep. Mornings when he woke at 5 a.m., she was still sleeping. The distance between them grew. "You promised we'd go to Paris for our anniversary," Olivia reminded him one night over a dinner he was too stressed to eat. "The company's in trouble, Liv. You know that." "The company's always in trouble," she snapped. "I gave up everything for you, Max." He looked at her then, really looked, and saw something had changed. The rebellious girl who defied her father was gone. In her place sat a woman who had begun to wonder if she'd made the wrong choice. The next day, an invitation arrived at their apartment. Lawrence Campbell's 60th birthday celebration at the family estate in Beacon Hill. Olivia wanted to go. "He's still my father, Max. The man who said I'd fail and you'd come crawling back. That father." "People change," Olivia insisted. "He's extended an olive branch. The least we can do is accept it." Maxwell reluctantly agreed. What he didn't know was that Lawrence Campbell never extended olive branches. He only set traps. Chapter 2. Cracks in the Foundation. The Campbell estate stood as a monument to old money, its red brick facade and wrought iron gates proclaiming generations of wealth and influence. As Maxwell parked their modest sedan amid a sea of luxury vehicles, he felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the South Boston kid who didn't belong. Olivia squeezed his hand. "It'll be fine," she assured him, though her eyes darted nervously toward the mansion. Lawrence Campbell greeted them in the grand foyer, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, his handshake firm but brief when he acknowledged Maxwell. "Olivia, darling," he said, embracing his daughter. You've been missed. And Maxwell, still working on that little computer project? Shield Core is a cybersecurity company with 26 employees, Mr. Campbell. Maxwell responded evenly. Hardly a little project. Lawrence's smile didn't reach his eyes. Of course. How? Entrepreneurial of you. The evening unfolded like psychological warfare. Maxwell endured pointed questions about Shield Core's finances, thinly veiled insinuations about his ability to provide properly for Olivia, and exclusion from conversations about summer homes and private jets. He might have endured it all, if not for Bradley Winthrop. Bradley approached during dinner, taking the empty seat beside Olivia, while Maxwell was trapped in conversation with a banker across the table. In his tailored suit and with his Harvard Business School pedigree, Bradley represented everything Lawrence wished his son-in-law had been. Maxwell watched as Bradley leaned too close to Olivia, making her laugh in a way Maxwell hadn't heard in months. He saw how Lawrence nodded approvingly at their interaction, and he noticed how Olivia didn't move away when Bradley's hand briefly covered hers. Later that night, as they drove home in silence, Maxwell finally spoke. You seemed quite comfortable with Bradley. We grew up together, Olivia dismissed. He's an old friend your father clearly approves of. Don't start, Max. Not everything is a conspiracy. But in the weeks that followed, Maxwell couldn't shake the feeling that something had been set in motion that night. Olivia began attending more Campbell family functions, alone, claiming Maxwell was too busy with Shield Corps anyway. She started mentioning Bradley in conversation, casual references to lunches and gallery openings. Just catching up with an old friend, she insisted when Maxwell questioned her. Meanwhile, Shield Corps faced its darkest hour. An investor pulled out at the last minute, leaving them without the capital needed for an essential server upgrade. Maxwell discovered the investor had received a call from Lawrence Campbell's bank, suggesting Shield Corps was a risky investment. Maxwell confronted Olivia, who defended her father vehemently. Why would he sabotage your company? That makes no sense. Because he wants you back in the fold, Liv. He wants you to see me fail, just like he predicted. You're being paranoid, she snapped. Maybe Shield Corps is failing because you spend more time with your computers than with actual people, including your wife. The argument ended with Olivia grabbing her purse and slamming the door on her way out. She didn't come home that night. When she returned the next morning, her excuse about staying at a hotel rang hollow. Maxwell noticed a matchbook from the Four Seasons in her purse, Bradley Winthrop's permanent residence. He said nothing but retreated into his work with renewed intensity. If Shield Corps failed, he would lose everything, including Olivia. He was certain of it now. 2 weeks later, Maxwell received a call from an unknown number. A venture capitalist named Theodore Hayes wanted to meet regarding a potential acquisition of Shield Corps technology. I've been monitoring your progress, Hayes said over coffee in a downtown bistro. Your adaptive response algorithm is exactly what my portfolio companies need. Maxwell was suspicious. Why now? We're hardly at our peak valuation. Hayes smiled. Let's just say I recognize potential when others don't. I'm prepared to offer $500 million. Maxwell nearly choked on his coffee. The figure was 10 times what he'd hoped for in his wildest dreams. There's a catch, Hayes continued. Complete confidentiality until the papers are signed. No one can know. Not your team, not your family. These deals fall apart under scrutiny. Maxwell hesitated only briefly before agreeing. If Hayes was genuine, this would change everything. If not, well, Maxwell had nothing left to lose. For the next month, Maxwell worked in secret with Hayes and his legal team. He told Olivia he was pursuing a last-ditch investor to save the company. She barely seemed to notice his absences anymore, too busy with her rediscovered social life among the Campbell elite. The night before the acquisition papers would be signed, Maxwell came home early to find a note from Olivia. Dinner with father tonight. Don't wait up. A quick check of their shared calendar revealed no such dinner. A call to Lawrence Campbell's house confirmed his suspicion. Lawrence was out of town on business. Maxwell drove to the Four Seasons. Chapter 3. The Revelation. The hotel bar at the Four Seasons exuded quiet luxury, crystal glasses, leather chairs, and discreet service for Boston's elite. Maxwell sat in a corner booth, nursing a whiskey he couldn't taste, watching the entrance. At 8:17 p.m., Olivia arrived, wearing a dress Maxwell had never seen, black, fitted, revealing. Bradley Winthrop greeted her with a kiss that lingered too long for old friends. They took a table in the opposite corner, holding hands across its polished surface. Maxwell could have confronted them then, created a scene in the Four Seasons' cultivated calm. Instead, he paid his bill and left. The coldness spreading through him had nothing to do with the autumn air outside. Back at their apartment, he packed a small bag with essentials. The acquisition papers would be signed tomorrow at 9 a.m. By noon, he would be worth $500 million. By 1 p.m., he would be gone from this apartment and this marriage. He spent the night in his office, finalizing details with Theodore Hayes via encrypted messages. At dawn, he returned home to shower and change. Olivia was asleep in their bed. Her perfume mingled with an unfamiliar cologne. The signing proceeded without a hitch. Hayes transferred the first payment, $100 million, immediately. The press release would go out at noon. "Congratulations," Hayes said, shaking Maxwell's hand. "You've just changed your life." "You have no idea," Maxwell replied. At 11:30 a.m., his phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Father wants to meet us for lunch. Important. Le Meridian, 12:30. Maxwell texted back, "I'll be there." The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Le Meridian's private dining room offered the discretion wealth demands. Lawrence Campbell sat at the head of the table, Olivia to his right, an empty chair to his left, presumably for Maxwell. Bradley Winthrop sat beside Olivia, their proximity speaking volumes. Lawrence barely looked up when Maxwell entered. "You're late," he said, checking his watch. It was exactly 12:30. "Actually, I'm right on time," Maxwell replied, remaining standing. Lawrence folded his hands on the table. "I'll come straight to the point, Maxwell. This charade has gone on long enough. My daughter deserves better than a failure like you." Maxwell didn't flinch. "Is that so? I'm prepared to be generous," Lawrence continued, removing a check from his jacket pocket and sliding it across the table. $1 million. In exchange for a quick, quiet divorce. Maxwell glanced at the check, then at Olivia, who wasn't meeting his eyes. "You knew about this?" he asked her. She finally looked up, a slight smirk playing on her lips. "Dad's right, Max. It's time to face reality. Shield Corps is tanking. You're drowning in debt. This way, everybody wins. Especially you and Bradley," Maxwell said quietly. Bradley at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Nothing personal, Reed. Business is business." "Indeed it is," Maxwell agreed, pushing the check back toward Lawrence. "Keep it. I just sold my startup yesterday." Lawrence scoffed. A transparent bluff. Maxwell pulled out his phone, opened the financial news app, and slid it across the table. The headline read, "Tech Security Breakthrough. Shield Corps acquired for $500 million." Lawrence's face drained of color. Olivia's eyes widened in disbelief. Furthermore, Maxwell continued, enjoying the moment. "The acquiring company is Hayes Innovation Group, a subsidiary of Reed Global Investments, which I established last year with a silent partner. As of 2 hours ago, Reed Global has also acquired a controlling interest in First Atlantic Bank." He turned to Lawrence. "I believe I own the bank that holds your mortgage now, among other things." Lawrence's jaw literally dropped. Olivia began stammering about misunderstandings and working things out. Bradley looked like he wanted to disappear. Maxwell stood. "Enjoy your lunch. My lawyers will be in touch regarding the divorce. Oh, and Mr. Campbell? Your loan restructuring meeting next week has been moved up. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. I wouldn't miss it." He walked out without looking back, each step lighter than the last. The game had just begun. Chapter 4. Strategic Positioning. The penthouse suite at the Archer Hotel offered panoramic views of Boston Harbor, but Maxwell Reed barely noticed the scenery. Spread across the dining table were documents, bank statements, property records, corporate filings, a paper trail of Campbell family vulnerabilities. "You're sure this is all legal?" Maxwell asked Harlow Donovan, the former federal prosecutor now heading his legal team. Harlow, a stern woman with silver hair cropped close to her scalp, adjusted her glasses. Legal? Yes. Ethical? That's a different question. The Campbell holdings are over-leveraged. Lawrence has been using one company to prop up another for years. But not illegal, Maxwell clarified. No, but predatory. First Atlantic has been unusually accommodating with his loan terms. Now that you control the bank. Maxwell nodded. Now I control the terms. His phone buzzed. Olivia calling for the 12th time since yesterday's revelation. He silenced it without a glance. Another call came through Theodore Hayes. The Campbell property assessments you requested, Hayes said without preamble. Lawrence's primary holding company, Campbell Heritage Group, used their Beacon Hill mansion as collateral for loans on 3 commercial properties downtown. Perfect, Maxwell replied. Proceed as discussed. He ended the call as Vivian Lang entered the suite. His childhood friend had risen through Goldman Sachs to become one of Boston's most cutthroat investment bankers. Now she worked exclusively for Maxwell. The Winthrop portfolio analysis, she announced, sliding a folder across the table. Bradley's family money is mostly tied up in Campbell Ventures. If Lawrence takes a hit, Bradley goes down with him, Maxwell finished. Harlow frowned. This vendetta against your wife's lover is perfectly justified, Maxwell interrupted. Bradley knew she was married. He participated in their scheme to humiliate me while Lawrence tanked my company. Actions have consequences. His phone buzzed again, a text from Peter Sullivan, his former business partner who'd suffered the heart attack, heard the news. Incredible. Can we meet? Maxwell texted back. Archer Hotel. 7 p.m. Peter arrived looking healthier than Maxwell had seen him in years. They embraced briefly. $500 million, Peter marveled. I always believed in Shield Corps, but your heart attack was a blessing in disguise, Maxwell told him. If you'd stayed, Lawrence Campbell would have destroyed you too. Peter's expression darkened. So the rumors are true? Olivia and that Winthrop character? Maxwell nodded grimly. What's your play now? Peter asked. Justice, Maxwell replied simply. Lawrence Campbell spent years looking down on me, then actively tried to ruin me. He nearly succeeded. Now he'll understand what it feels like to lose everything. And Olivia? Maxwell's expression hardened. She made her choice. The following morning, Maxwell entered First Atlantic Bank's boardroom precisely at 9 a.m. Lawrence Campbell was already waiting, his usual confidence notably diminished. This meeting is unnecessary, Lawrence began. My payments are current, but your loan covenants aren't, Maxwell countered, opening a folder. Your debt-to-income ratio exceeds the maximum permitted by your agreement. First Atlantic previously overlooked this because, well, you're Lawrence Campbell. He looked up. I'm not nearly as impressed by that name. Lawrence's face flushed with anger. You spiteful little upstart. This is about Olivia. This is about business. Maxwell cut him off. First Atlantic is calling your loans due in full. You have 30 days. Lawrence paled. That's over $40 million. You know that's impossible. Not my problem. Perhaps Bradley Winthrop's family can help. I understand they're quite close to your interests. This won't bring Olivia back, Lawrence said, a last desperate jab. Maxwell smiled coldly. I don't want her back. I want you to remember this moment, Lawrence. When you offer me $1 million to disappear, believing I was nothing, I want you to live with the consequences of your miscalculation. That afternoon, Maxwell met with Thomas Reynolds, Lawrence's longtime business rival. You want me to buy Campbell's downtown properties? Reynolds clarified, eyebrows raised. At 60 cents on the dollar, Maxwell confirmed. Once First Atlantic forecloses, Reynolds whistled. That's ruthless. I like it. But why involve me? Because everyone knows your history with Lawrence. When you acquire his properties, it will be the ultimate humiliation. Reynolds grinned. Count me in. Meanwhile, across town, Bradley Winthrop was discovering his family's precarious financial position. His frantic calls to Lawrence went unanswered. His calls to Olivia connected to voicemail. The trap was tightening. Chapter 5. The Counter Moves. The story broke on a Tuesday, Campbell Empire faces financial crisis. By Wednesday, Lawrence Campbell's carefully cultivated reputation was in tatters. First Atlantic Bank had officially called in his loans. The stock of Campbell Heritage Group plummeted. Creditors swarmed like vultures over wounded prey. Maxwell watched the chaos unfold from the disciplined calm of his new operations center, an entire floor of Boston's premier office tower that he'd leased under Reed Global Investments. Screens displayed real-time updates on Campbell Holdings, Winthrop assets, and market reactions. Harlow Donovan entered, tablet in hand. Lawrence is trying to secure emergency funding from Meridian Trust. Maxwell nodded. As expected, Vivian Lang stepped forward. Already handled. I met with Meridian's board yesterday. They've declined his application. Not personally blocked, Maxwell clarified. We can't appear to be orchestrating this. Of course not, Vivian confirmed. I simply provided accurate information about the Campbell liabilities. Their risk assessment did the rest. Theodore Hayes arrived next. Bradley Winthrop is liquidating personal assets. Watches, art collection, the summer house in Nantucket. Too little, too late, Maxwell observed dispassionately. His phone buzzed with another call from Olivia. 3 weeks of unanswered calls and texts, yet she persisted. This time he answered. Maxwell, she began, her voice carefully controlled. We need to talk. About what, Olivia? Your affair with Bradley? Your father's attempt to buy me off? Or perhaps the divorce papers you were served yesterday? This vendetta against my father is childish, she snapped, facade cracking. You've made your point. You're not a failure. Now stop this madness. Madness? Maxwell repeated softly. No, Olivia. This is clarity. For years, I tolerated your father's condescension. I ignored your growing disdain. I worked myself to exhaustion while you were sleeping with Bradley. Now you're experiencing consequences. I'll contest the divorce, she threatened. I'm entitled to half of everything. Actually, you're not. The prenuptial agreement you signed was for your non-existent assets at the time, she interrupted. It doesn't cover Shield Corps' acquisition. Check paragraph 12, Maxwell advised. Any business founded during the marriage, regardless of subsequent valuation. He paused. Your father should have read it more carefully when his lawyer drafted it. Silence stretched across the line. I loved you, Olivia, Maxwell said finally. That wasn't a lie. If you ever loved me, she replied, voice trembling, you'll stop destroying my family. Maxwell ended the call without responding. That evening, Peter Sullivan visited the operations center, whistling at the impressive setup. You've come a long way from that warehouse in Southie, he remarked. I had proper motivation, Maxwell replied drily. Peter's expression turned serious. Lawrence Campbell is spreading rumors. Says you hacked bank records, committed fraud to tank his businesses. Let him, Maxwell shrugged. Every transaction is legitimate. Every move legally sound. He's desperate, Peter warned. Desperate men do desperate things. Maxwell nodded thoughtfully. I'm counting on it. The next morning, Lawrence Campbell requested a meeting through intermediaries. Maxwell agreed to see him at the Archer Hotel. Lawrence arrived looking haggard, his usually immaculate appearance showing signs of strain. His handshake was limp when Maxwell greeted him. You've made your point, Lawrence began without preamble. Name your price to end this. Maxwell gestured for him to sit. There is no price, Lawrence. This isn't a negotiation. Everyone has a price, Lawrence insisted. 5 million? 10? Name it. You still don't understand, Maxwell said quietly. This isn't about money. It's about justice. Lawrence's composure cracked. You sanctimonious prick. You think you're the first man Olivia cheated with? Bradley is just the latest in a long line. She has a pattern, rebellious phases where she slums it with men I disapprove of, then returns to her real life. Maxwell absorbed this revelation with outward calm, though it twisted something inside him. That's your defense? That your daughter is a habitual cheater you manipulate for control. I'm saying you were temporary, Lawrence spat. A phase. She would have left you eventually, $1 million check or not. Perhaps, Maxwell acknowledged. But now we'll never know. What we do know is that Campbell Heritage Group faces bankruptcy, Bradley Winthrop's family fortune is evaporating, and your Beacon Hill mansion goes to auction next week. Lawrence lunged across the table, grasping for Maxwell's collar. Security appeared instantly, restraining the older man. "This isn't over," Lawrence snarled as they escorted him out. "Actually," Maxwell called after him, "it's only just beginning." Chapter 6: The Precipice. The Beacon Hill Mansion auction drew a crowd of elite Bostonians, reporters, and curious onlookers, all witnesses to the unprecedented fall of Lawrence Campbell. Maxwell observed from the sidelines, unrecognized in his understated attire. 15 million, going once, going twice, sold to number 47. Thomas Reynolds lowered his bidding paddle, a satisfied smile playing across his face. He had just purchased the Campbell family home for half its appraised value. Maxwell's phone vibrated. Theodore Hayes. Bradley Winthrop attempting to secure private loan through Harrison Financial. "Block it," Maxwell texted back. 10 minutes later, done. Across the room, Maxwell spotted Olivia, dressed in black as if attending a funeral. Their eyes met briefly before she looked away, her expression unreadable. As the crowd dispersed, Olivia approached him. "Enjoying the show?" she asked bitterly. "Just ensuring the right buyer prevailed," Maxwell replied. "Thomas Reynolds," she said, glancing toward the man now speaking with the auctioneer. "Dad's oldest enemy. That's particularly vindictive, even for you." "I learned from the best," Maxwell replied evenly. Olivia's composure slipped. "My father is in the hospital." "Maxwell. Stress-induced cardiac event. Are you satisfied now?" Something flickered in Maxwell's eyes. Not quite remorse, but acknowledgement. "That wasn't my intention." "But you're not sorry," she observed. "No," he confirmed. "I'm not." She studied him as if seeing a stranger. "What happened to you?" "I grew up," Maxwell replied. "Finally understood the game you and your father were playing." "It wasn't a game to me," Olivia insisted. "Not all of it. Save it for Bradley," Maxwell said dismissively. "How is he, by the way?" "I heard the Winthrop family assets aren't looking too healthy." Olivia's laugh was hollow. "Bradley dumped me last week. Said I was too much of a liability in the current climate." Despite everything, Maxwell felt a twinge of something, not sympathy exactly, recognition, perhaps, of Olivia being discarded just as she'd discarded him. "Karma," he said simply. That evening, Maxwell received an unexpected visitor at the Archer. Vivian buzzed from the lobby. "Bradley Winthrop is here. Says it's urgent." Maxwell considered a moment. "Send him up." Bradley entered looking significantly diminished, designer suit replaced by department store attire, the confident swagger gone. 2 minutes, Maxwell told him, not offering a seat. Bradley nodded nervously. "I'm here to propose a deal. I have information about Lawrence's offshore accounts. Assets your financial team hasn't found. I'll provide access in exchange for leniency." Maxwell regarded him coldly. "You're betraying Lawrence now?" "It's survival," Bradley admitted without shame. "Lawrence hid millions in the Caymans. With that information, you can complete his destruction. All I ask is that you ease up on the Winthrop holdings." "And Olivia? What about your relationship with my wife?" Bradley's gaze dropped. "That's over. It was a mistake." "A mistake," Maxwell repeated. "Like helping Lawrence sabotage my investors? Like conspiring at that lunch to humiliate me with $1 million check? Those kinds of mistakes." Bradley paled. "Lawrence orchestrated everything. I just followed his lead." "Cowardice and betrayal," Maxwell observed. "Quite the combination." He walked to the window, considering the offer. The offshore accounts would indeed complete Lawrence's financial ruin. But accepting Bradley's treachery felt repugnant. "You have the information with you?" Maxwell asked finally. Bradley quickly produced a flash drive. "Everything's here. Account numbers, passwords, transfer records." Maxwell took it, turning it over in his hand. "You understand this doesn't absolve you? This is merely a consideration." "I understand," Bradley said, relief evident in his voice. "You can go." Maxwell dismissed him. After Bradley left, Maxwell inserted the flash drive into his laptop. The files confirmed substantial offshore holdings, Nearly $60 million Lawrence had hidden from creditors and tax authorities. Maxwell called Harlow Donovan. "I need to know if this information was obtained legally," he said, forwarding the files. "I'll review immediately," she promised. An hour later, she called back. "It's complicated. The information itself is damning for Lawrence: potential tax evasion, hidden assets during financial disclosures. But using it could implicate Bradley Winthrop in those same crimes. And me by extension, if I act on it," Maxwell concluded. "Precisely," Harlow confirmed. "This could be a trap. Bradley provides information. You use it, then Lawrence claims corporate espionage or blackmail." Maxwell considered this. Or it could be exactly what it appears: a desperate man selling out his mentor to save himself. Either way, Harlow advised, proceed with extreme caution. Maxwell stared at the offshore account details on his screen. Using this information would destroy Lawrence completely. It would also potentially compromise Maxwell's own carefully constructed legal position. The perfect trap within a trap. Lawrence Campbell remained in the hospital, his empire crumbling. Bradley Winthrop had turned informant against his mentor. Olivia stood abandoned by both her lover and her fortune. And Maxwell held the power to determine all their fates. Chapter 7. The Reckoning. Dawn broke over Boston Harbor as Maxwell Reed convened his inner circle in the Penthouse Command Center. Harlow Donovan, Vivian Lang, Theodore Hayes, Peter Sullivan, and Thomas Reynolds gathered around the conference table. "Bradley Winthrop's information checks out," Maxwell announced. "Lawrence Campbell has hidden approximately $60 million across 3 Cayman accounts. That would certainly interest the IRS," Thomas Reynolds remarked with a predatory smile. "And violates at least 6 loan covenants with First Atlantic," Vivian added. Harlow raised a cautionary hand. "It also presents significant legal risk if we act on illegally obtained information." "Which is why we won't," Maxwell interrupted. "At least, not directly." He activated the room's main display, showing a complex flowchart of financial entities. "For the past 3 weeks, we've been tracking every legitimate Campbell transaction. We've established a pattern. With that pattern, our analysts have mathematically predicted the existence of these offshore accounts without using Bradley's information." "Parallel construction," Harlow noted, impressed despite her reservations. "Precisely," Maxwell confirmed. "Vivian will present First Atlantic's findings to federal regulators as part of standard due diligence following loan defaults. We never mentioned the flash drive." "And Bradley?" Peter asked. "Gets nothing," Maxwell said firmly. "The Winthrop assets remain in our crosshairs." Thomas Reynolds leaned forward. "That's cold, Reed. Effective but cold." "Bradley made his choices," Maxwell replied without remorse. "Just like Lawrence. Just like Olivia." The meeting concluded with assignments distributed. Maxwell remained alone, staring at the harbor view. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Need to meet. Hospital cafeteria. 2 p.m. Important. Olivia." Maxwell hesitated before responding. "One time. Then we're done." Massachusetts General Hospital's cafeteria offered little privacy, but that suited Maxwell fine. Olivia waited at a corner table, her designer clothing replaced by simple jeans and a sweater, her usually perfect makeup subdued. "Thank you for coming," she said as he sat across from her. "You said it was important," Maxwell replied neutrally. Olivia pushed a cup of coffee toward him. "Prepared exactly as he liked it," he noted. "Old habits. My father suffered a major stroke last night," she said without preamble. "The doctors are uncertain about recovery." Maxwell absorbed this without visible reaction. "I'm sorry for your personal pain," he said finally. "But Lawrence made his choices. He's asking for you," Olivia continued. "Keep saying your name when he's lucid." This surprised Maxwell. "Why would he want to see me?" "I don't know," Olivia admitted. "But it might be your last chance to, I don't know, make peace." "Peace," Maxwell repeated, tasting the word like something foreign. "There's no peace to be made, Olivia. Your father tried to destroy me. You betrayed me. Bradley conspired with both of you. Actions have consequences." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "The Maxwell I married wouldn't be this cruel. The Maxwell you married died the day you smirked while your father tried to buy him off," he replied evenly. You created this version of me. All of you. So that's it? Endless revenge? When does it stop? Maxwell stood. When justice is complete. And then what? Olivia challenged. Does destroying us all make you happy? The question caught him off guard. Happiness hadn't factored into his calculations for months. Goodbye, Olivia, he said, leaving his untouched coffee on the table. Instead of exiting the hospital, however, Maxwell took the elevator to the stroke ward. Lawrence Campbell's private room was easy to find, the largest on the floor with a dedicated nurse stationed outside. I'm Maxwell Reed, he told the nurse. I understand Mr. Campbell asked for me. She nodded. He's been in and out of consciousness, but yes, your name has come up repeatedly. Lawrence lay connected to monitoring equipment, his imposing presence diminished by illness. His right side appeared immobilized, his speech slurred when his eyes fluttered open. Reed, he managed, recognizing Maxwell. You came. Curiosity, Maxwell explained, remaining near the door. What could you possibly have to say to me now? Lawrence struggled to form words. Not what you think. What I think, Maxwell said coldly, is that you're facing the consequences of your actions. Your empire is falling. Your offshore accounts have been flagged for investigation. Your protege, Bradley, has betrayed you. A flicker of surprise crossed Lawrence's partially paralyzed features. Yes, Bradley offered me everything, Maxwell continued. Account numbers, passwords, transfer records. He sold you out to save himself. Lawrence closed his eyes, a single tear escaping. No surprise. Then why ask for me? Maxwell demanded. To warn you, Lawrence managed. Olivia, not what she seems. Maxwell laughed bitterly. That's your deathbed revelation? That your daughter is deceitful? I learned that firsthand. Lawrence shook his head with obvious effort. Worse, she orchestrated everything. What are you talking about? Bradley, her idea. Destroy you, her plan. I just followed. Maxwell stared, processing this claim. You expect me to believe Olivia masterminded my downfall? That you were a puppet? Check. Her private email. Password. Beacon Hill, 1990. See truth. Maxwell's phone buzzed, Vivian calling with an update on the financial maneuvers. He ignored it, focused on Lawrence's struggling words. Why tell me this now? Maxwell demanded. Dying man's confession, Lawrence whispered. You won fair. She never loses. Maxwell left the hospital in turmoil, Lawrence's claims echoing in his mind. Could Olivia have been the architect rather than a participant? It seemed implausible, Lawrence Campbell yielding control to anyone, even his daughter. Yet doubt had been planted. Back at the Archer, Maxwell accessed Olivia's email using the credentials Lawrence had provided. If this was a trap, he was walking into it willingly. The account opened. Dozens of exchanges between Olivia and Bradley dating back 2 years, long before the affair supposedly began. Messages outlining a systematic plan to liberate Campbell assets from Lawrence's control. Discussions about using Maxwell as both distraction and scapegoat. One email from Olivia to Bradley stood out. Father remains fixated on M's inevitable failure. We'll use that. When Shield Core collapses, you'll console me. I'll return to the family fold bringing M's technological insights, and Father will never suspect we're positioning for the succession plan. 2 years max. Maxwell sat back, stunned. He had believed himself the victim of Lawrence's snobbery and Olivia's faithlessness. The truth was far more calculated. He had been a pawn in a dynastic power struggle. His phone rang again. Harlow Donovan. Federal regulators have frozen the Campbell accounts based on our information, she reported. Lawrence could face criminal charges if he recovers. And Bradley Winthrop? Maxwell asked, attempting to flee the country. Border Patrol has been alerted. Let him go, Maxwell decided. He's irrelevant now. Another piece clicked into place. Maxwell called Theodore Hayes. I need everything on Olivia Campbell's personal finances, not the joint accounts with me. Her private holdings. Within an hour, Hayes delivered the report. As Maxwell suspected, Olivia maintained separate accounts Lawrence knew nothing about, accounts that had seen substantial transfers from Campbell companies over the past 3 years. The mastermind revealed. Maxwell summoned Thomas Reynolds for an urgent meeting. I need a change in our strategy, Maxwell explained, outlining his discoveries. Reynolds whistled. The daughter orchestrating the father's downfall while using you as cover. That's impressively ruthless. Indeed, Maxwell agreed, which is why we're pivoting. Lawrence remains a target, but Olivia becomes primary. She has far less visible wealth, Reynolds pointed out, but potentially more hidden assets, Maxwell countered, and something Lawrence lacks, vulnerability through emotional attachment. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. To what? Certainly not you or Bradley at this point. Maxwell smiled coldly. To the Campbell name itself. Her identity is tied to being Lawrence's daughter, heir to the dynasty. What if that legacy disappeared completely? Understanding dawned on Reynolds' face. You're going to dissolve Campbell Heritage Group entirely. Erase the name from Boston's landscape. Precisely, Maxwell confirmed. Not just financial ruin, historical erasure. Chapter 8. Dismantling Dynasty. The Campbell Foundation Annual Gala had been Boston's premier charitable event for 3 decades. Despite Lawrence's hospitalization and the family's financial turmoil, Olivia insisted the tradition continue, a show of resilience and continuity for Boston society. Maxwell received an invitation, much to his surprise. Handwritten by Olivia, a truce for one night. For charity's sake, he understood the real message. Olivia was making a public stand, demonstrating Campbell permanence despite recent setbacks. He would attend, but not alone. The ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel glittered with Boston's elite, though attendance was noticeably thinner than previous years. Fairweather friends had abandoned the Campbell orbit as its gravitational pull weakened. Maxwell arrived with Diana Montgomery, the philanthropist daughter of Boston's police commissioner. Not a romantic pairing. Diana understood her role as strategic ally for the evening. Olivia greeted them at the entrance, her composure impeccable despite the subtle flinch when she saw Diana. Maxwell, Ms. Montgomery, how unexpected. Diana serves on 3 charitable boards with me now, Maxwell explained smoothly. Since I've become so active in Boston philanthropy. Olivia's smile remained fixed. Of course, philanthropy has always been a Campbell tradition. For now, Maxwell replied mildly. The evening progressed with Olivia playing perfect hostess, making announcements about the foundation's ongoing work and Lawrence's temporary absence due to health concerns. No mention of financial troubles or frozen assets. During dinner, Maxwell excused himself and slipped away to a service corridor where Vivian Lang waited with a tablet. It's done, she confirmed. The press release goes out at 9 p.m. precisely. Maxwell checked his watch. 8:57. Perfect timing. He returned to the ballroom just as Olivia took the stage for her keynote address. For generations, the Campbell name has represented stability, generosity, and commitment to Boston's future, she began. Though my father cannot be with us tonight, his vision continues through the Campbell Foundation's work. Maxwell observed phones lighting up throughout the audience. The news was breaking. Faces turned toward screens, then toward Olivia in shock. Whispers spread like ripples in still water. Olivia faltered, noticing the disturbance. Is something? Diana Montgomery, right on cue, stood and approached the stage, her own phone extended. Ms. Campbell, I believe you should see this. Olivia scanned the screen, color draining from her face. Her eyes sought Maxwell in the crowd, finding him watching calmly from his table. If you'll excuse me, Olivia managed before hurrying from the stage. Maxwell followed her to a private anteroom where she stood trembling, staring at her phone. Reed Global acquires Campbell Foundation, she read aloud. All assets to be redistributed under Reed Charitable Trust. Campbell name to be removed from all programs and properties effective immediately. She looked up, eyes blazing. You can't do this. The foundation is separate from the business holdings. Actually, I can, Maxwell corrected. The foundation's endowment was collateralized against Campbell Heritage Group loans now owned by First Atlantic. Furthermore, the board voted unanimously this afternoon to accept Reed Global's restructuring proposal. The board works for my family. Worked, Maxwell corrected. Past tense. They now answer to the creditors, specifically to me. Olivia's composure shattered. The foundation is our legacy. 3 generations of Campbells built it, and 1 generation destroyed it. Maxwell replied coldly. I warned you, Olivia. Actions have consequences. This is beyond revenge, she whispered. This is justice, Maxwell finished, for using me as a pawn in your game against Lawrence. Oh yes, I know everything. Your father was quite revealing after his stroke. Shock registered on Olivia's face. What did he tell you? Everything your emails confirmed, Maxwell said. Your 2-year plan to use me for my technology while positioning yourself to take control of Campbell Holdings. Bradley as your co-conspirator from the beginning. Lawrence as your ultimate target. He's lying, Olivia insisted. He's trying to shift blame. Beacon Hill, 1990, Maxwell interrupted. Your private email password. Very sentimental. Olivia stumbled backward. You accessed my private correspondence? That's illegal. Perhaps, Maxwell acknowledged, though not nearly as illegal as what those emails revealed about your systematic embezzlement from Campbell companies. He stepped closer. You played a long game, Olivia. 2 years of planning, 3 years of marriage, all to position yourself against your father while using me as cover and scapegoat. It wasn't like that, she whispered. Not at first. Save it, Maxwell dismissed. The Campbell dynasty ends tonight. No foundation, no legacy, no generational wealth, just disgrace and federal investigations. Olivia's shock transformed into calculating assessment. What do you want? There must be something. Nothing you can offer, Maxwell replied. Not anymore. Everyone can be bought, she insisted, echoing her father's words from weeks earlier. Name your price. Maxwell smiled without warmth. That's the difference between us, Olivia. You and your family always believed everything and everyone had a price. Some things don't. Some principles can't be compromised. Self-righteousness doesn't suit you, she snapped. You've become exactly what you claim to despise, ruthless, unforgiving, destroying lives for personal satisfaction. No, Maxwell corrected. I've become someone who stands against people like you. The difference is accountability. You and Lawrence and Bradley believed yourselves above consequences. I'm simply proving otherwise. His phone buzzed. A message from Thomas Reynolds, federal agents at Campbell offices. Seizing documents. Your federal problems begin tonight, Maxwell informed her. Your separate accounts have been flagged for investigation. The trails of money from Campbell companies to your private holdings are being traced as we speak. Olivia paled. You can't prove anything. I don't have to, Maxwell replied. The evidence speaks for itself. And unlike your father, you don't have decades of political connections to shield you. He turned to leave. Maxwell, Olivia called after him, voice cracking. Please, don't do this. He paused at the door. You know what the saddest part is, Olivia? I actually loved you. That wasn't part of any game or strategy. It was real. He glanced back. I wonder if anything was real for you. Maxwell returned to the ballroom, where the gala was disintegrating into shocked conversations and hasty departures. Diana Montgomery joined him. Mission accomplished, she asked quietly. Phase 1, Maxwell confirmed. The foundation was the heart of the Campbell identity. Without it, they're just another failed, wealthy family. And Phase 2, Maxwell checked his watch, begins tomorrow. The complete dissolution of the Campbell name from Boston's landscape. Chapter 9, Cold Satisfaction. Over the following weeks, Boston witnessed the systematic erasure of the Campbell legacy. The Campbell wing at Boston General Hospital became the Reed Medical Center. Campbell Plaza was renamed Innovation Square. The Campbell Fellowship at Harvard Business School transformed into the Shield Core Technology Grant. Each change was accompanied by significant financial contributions from Reed Global, ensuring institutions welcomed rather than resisted the transitions. Lawrence Campbell died in his sleep 4 weeks after the gala. The stroke had left him unable to defend himself against federal investigations or witness the complete dismantling of his life's work. His funeral was sparsely attended, fair-weather friends having abandoned the family entirely. Maxwell did not attend. Bradley Winthrop had indeed fled the country, reportedly living in Monaco on rapidly dwindling funds. Without Campbell backing, his family's businesses had collapsed under scrutiny. His passport had been flagged by federal authorities, preventing his return to the United States. Olivia faced multiple federal indictments for financial crimes. Released on bail, she had retreated to a modest apartment, her assets frozen, her social standing evaporated. 3 times she had attempted to contact Maxwell. 3 times he had declined the calls. 6 months after the gala, Maxwell sat in his office at Reed Tower, formerly Campbell Building, reviewing the final acquisition reports. Campbell Heritage Group had been completely dismantled, its assets distributed across Reed, global subsidiaries, or sold to competitors. The Campbell name had been systematically removed from every property, program, and institution in Boston. A knock at his door interrupted his review. Peter Sullivan entered, looking concerned. "Have you seen this?" he asked, placing a newspaper on Maxwell's desk. The headline read, "Olivia Campbell Attempts Suicide Following Indictment." Maxwell scanned the article impassively. Olivia had been found unconscious in her apartment after an apparent overdose. She remained hospitalized, but stable. "They're saying it was a cry for help," Peter continued when Maxwell remained silent. "A note was found asking for your forgiveness." Maxwell closed the newspaper. "A manipulation tactic." "Maybe," Peter acknowledged. "Or maybe she's genuinely at rock bottom. She orchestrated her own downfall," Maxwell replied without emotion. "Her father, her lover, and her husband were all pawns in her game. The fact that I won doesn't change that." Peter studied his friend. "You've achieved everything you set out to do, Max. The Campbells are ruined. Their name is gone for Boston. Your success is undeniable." He paused. "Are you happy?" The question echoed Olivia's challenge months earlier in the hospital cafeteria. Maxwell considered it seriously this time. "Happy isn't the right word," he answered finally. "Satisfied, perhaps. Justice has been served." "And what now?" Peter pressed. Maxwell gestured toward the windows overlooking Boston. "Reed Global continues expanding. Shield Corps' technology develops further. Life proceeds. Alone, not alone," Maxwell corrected. "I have colleagues, allies, projects that matter." Peter shook his head. "That's not what I meant." Maxwell regarded his oldest friend calmly. "I know what you meant. The answer is yes, likely alone in the romantic sense. Some experiences leave lasting impressions, Peter. Trust isn't easily rebuilt." Later that evening, Maxwell visited Thomas Reynolds at his club. Ironically, the former Campbell Club, now renamed Beacon Society. To complete victory, Thomas toasted, raising his glass. Maxwell clinked glasses but didn't drink. "Is it ever truly complete?" Thomas looked surprised. "Having second thoughts? After all you've accomplished?" "Not second thoughts," Maxwell clarified. "Just perspective. The Campbells destroyed themselves ultimately. Lawrence through arrogance, Bradley through cowardice, Olivia through ambition. I merely accelerated their inevitable collision with consequences." "Philosophical in victory," Thomas observed. "That's rare. Did you know Olivia attempted suicide?" Maxwell asked abruptly. Thomas nodded grimly. "I heard. Theatrics, no doubt." "Most likely," Maxwell agreed. "Though it raises a question I've been considering. What separates justice from vengeance?" "Intent," Thomas suggested. "Vengeance is emotional. Justice is rational." "Then I've achieved justice," Maxwell concluded. "Because throughout this process, I've remained rational. Calculating. Cold. The most effective way to be," Thomas approved. "Yes," Maxwell agreed, finally sipping his drink. "And therein lies the ultimate cost." The following morning, Maxwell received an unexpected visitor at Reed Tower. Harlow Donovan entered his office looking grave. "Federal prosecutors contacted me," she announced without preamble. "They're offering Olivia a deal in exchange for testimony against Bradley Winthrop and posthumous charges against Lawrence Campbell." Maxwell raised an eyebrow. "Why tell me?" "That's her decision. She's refusing," Harlow explained. "Says she'll only cooperate if you personally ask her to." "Another manipulation," Maxwell observed. "Perhaps," Harlow acknowledged. But potentially the final chapter in this saga. If she cooperates, the Campbell destruction becomes public record. Your victory becomes legally documented history. Maxwell considered this. And if I refuse, she likely faces significant prison time. The evidence is substantial. As it should be, Maxwell noted. Her crimes were substantial. So you won't see her? Harlow pressed. Maxwell stared out at the Boston skyline, a landscape now devoid of Campbell influence. No, her choices led her here, just as mine led me here. And that's sufficient, Harlow asked, knowing she'll suffer the legal consequences without your intervention. Justice doesn't require my presence, Maxwell replied. Only truth and accountability. After Harlow departed, Maxwell remained at his window, watching the city below. In 1 year, he had transformed from struggling entrepreneur to powerful billionaire, from loving husband to calculating avenger, from optimistic creator to cold strategist. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, Olivia's latest attempt to reach him. I never meant to love you, but I did. That was my greatest miscalculation. Maxwell read the message twice before deleting it without response. Some chapters needed to remain closed. That evening, he visited Shield Corps' new headquarters, touring the research labs where his original vision continued evolving. Young engineers and programmers worked on security systems that would protect millions of users worldwide. This, he realized, was his true legacy. Not the destruction of the Campbells, but the creation of something valuable and lasting. As Maxwell drove home to his penthouse, he passed the former Campbell estate on Beacon Hill. Thomas Reynolds had converted it into a technology incubator for promising startups from disadvantaged backgrounds. Maxwell approved of the symmetry. Where privilege had once been inherited, opportunity would now be earned. The Campbell dynasty had fallen. Reed Global had risen. Justice, cold and complete, had been served. Maxwell Reed drove on, alone but satisfied, into a future entirely of his own making. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.